Welcome to the very first inaugural edition of Cowboy's Corral. And with me tonight, I have Joseph Hendee. Joseph is just an average Hillsdale citizen, normal blue-collar worker, with the exception that he does have an internet presence. He has run Facebook Truth and Consequences for several years, and if you haven't seen it, I'd encourage you to check his site out. Joe is a real researcher, and he stays on top of a lot of political things. He called me just before the commissioners' organizational meeting that they hold every year, the first business day of the year, which would have been January 2nd. It was on a Tuesday. He was concerned with OMA violations. Now, if you don't know what OMA is, that's the Open Meetings Act legislation that was passed, I think, in 1976. It's been quite some time ago. And so elected officials, ideally, really should be aware, quite familiar with the OMA, especially at the county level. Like the county clerk really should be aware of that. So Joe did not believe that the meeting was posted properly. It's to be posted at least in one place where they have the meetings, but where they have their meetings is not accessible to see on the door when the building is not open. So Joe will elaborate on how they might remedy that, but they also advertise it on the internet on their webpage, and that should be consistent. If they're going to have it there, they should always keep that up. So he was concerned about these postings, and if a meeting is not posted, you can declare it an illegal meeting. And Joe did make mention of it to the commissioners, and they decided to proceed with their meeting. They felt that they had their bases covered. So this video will cover a lot of that. Joe, I've kind of explained the OMA. Why don't you elaborate on, when you called me, what you felt were the upfront violations, and then as the meeting progressed, we discovered some others.
I called you, Mark, because I was concerned about OMA violations, number one, but there were, if you wouldn't have came, I wouldn't have had anybody to collaborate my story, number one. So I'll get into
If I could interject just real quickly, you and I were the only members of all of Hillsdale County at that meeting. There were
that is correct.
Just two other officials, Dave Holcomb, who is their internet guy, their media guy.
Yeah, IT.
And Stephanie Kaiser, treasurer, was set in on that meeting. I'm not sure she had to be there or needed to be, but certainly has the right to be.
Correct.
No one else from the public was. I take that back. There was a gentleman that lives up by Jonesville that was there that frequents the meetings. Us three were the only ones.
Okay.
Out of roughly 30,000 people.
46,000 people.
Correct, but when I say 30,000, I think there's probably that many adult voting age people.
Correct.
So yeah, go back.
Here's the problem with their posting. Number one, prior to the meeting was on a Tuesday, so Friday the courts were closed. They were closed Saturday, they were closed Sunday, and they were closed Monday because of the holiday.
No, the courthouse is where they do their posting on the inside.
It's on the inside, but it's not accessible when the doors are locked.
Correct.
So the OMA says that the public notice has to be accessible. So if it's behind locked doors, then it's not really accessible, because someone could go to work before the courthouse opens, and they could get out after it closes.
That's right.
So they can't see the public notice. Now, it should be done properly, like the road commission does theirs properly. It's on the inside of the entrance door. So if the doors are ever locked, it's still right here in front of your face. You can read when the meetings are, right?
The building's clean enough.
The health department is the same way. Branch County Board of Commissioners are the same way. Hillsdale is not making it accessible. They're hiding this public notice, in my opinion, to keep the public out.
Well, they're certainly not doing the best for the public.
They're not. They just don't want to be transparent, Mark. We have a lot of politicians as commissioners, very few statesmen.
Mm-hmm.
And The other OMA violation was made during the vote for chair. They voted for a secret ballot, and then
Which you found language that's a no-no.
which I found language in the OMA that says, look, you know, people have a right to know how their commissioners vote.
Mm-hmm.
They used a state statute from 1851. OMA supersedes or takes precedent over the state statute that they used.
I would believe that should be correct, absolutely.
And so they didn't want to follow that. And then they had, 4 votes before. They had 4 votes on who was going to be chair and couldn't come to an agreement, or no one could win by 2/3 of the vote.
Right.
So Commissioner Leiniger called for a recess. In that recess, Mark takes 2 commissioners, one at a time, behind closed doors, talks to them, comes back, gets the other one, talks to them. They come back, recess starts. All of a sudden, Wiley goes from 0 votes to 3 votes to Doug Ingalls' 2 votes.
Correct.
So he won as chair. Now, canvassing starts before the meeting, generally starts before the meeting, and it starts when there's a vote too. Now Wiley took a recess in the middle of a vote, and Wiley canvassed these 2 other commissioners. They came back and he won.
He claims he did it.
Whatever you want to call it.
It's very suspect.
Whatever you want to call it. He lobbied them. He canvassed them. He coerced them.
Because earlier, before the vote, 2 of them spoke out, and you can help me with my memory. And if anybody wants to double check this, both the county has this meeting up on their YouTube, and at the Adams Times, I have the meeting in 2 segments up, minus the recess that they took. So prior to the recess, 2 of the commissioners, and I believe it was
Benzing and Leiniger, spoke out and said that it was time for a change of chair.
Right, because Mr. Wiley has been chair.
Mr. Wiley has been chair for 10 years. I had made the mention at a previous commissioners meeting under public comment that they need to amend their bylaws and that everybody should have a chance to be the chair. Mm-hmm. The bylaws should say that they rotate every 2 years. So every commissioner gets a chance to be the chair. That's how it works in many other counties in our state, and that's how it works at the Public Health Department.
Okay.
They rotate chairs. And Mr. Wiley knows this because he was the chair on the health department.
Right. The commissioners visit. That's the wrong word. They're part of.
They sit on boards and committees.
Right. Because the county has some overlap with them.
Oversight.
So the commissioners do sometimes chair
Correct.
some of these other
Correct.
entities.
So they know how their other boards and committee chairs bylaws work. So if they've been on them at any certain length of time, then they know that the chair rotates every year, every 2 years. Okay. I mean, Hillsdale Mr. Wiley doesn't want that in our bylaws because he wants to remain chair. And I think
I would have to agree with you that it almost seems that way.
Mr. Wiley has each board and committee set up in such a way that he keeps himself as chair. Because, for instance, Leiniger's on the finance committee. Mm-hmm. He can't be the chair and be on the finance committee at the same time. Now, I believe that's in their bylaws or in our bylaws or something to that effect. But if you watch the video, Mr. Wiley explains this. And so, there's why he doesn't want Leiniger to be chair.
He did argue that there was some merit in keeping continuity. And I can see that point, but when the other 2 commissioners, Benzine and Leiniger, argued so they put so much emphasis on their argument that it was time for a change. And then when they came back from recess, it was one vote and it was all over.
Yep, and I believe that he told Mr. Benzing or Commissioner Benzing, look, you vote for me for chair, and I'll vote for you for vice chair. And that's exactly what happened. Brad got vice chair.
Right, he did. So
And
whether that was said or not, they deny it, but it certainly is suspect that that may have taken place.
It was definitely an OMA violation. And, you know, like I said before, we have a lot of politicians as commissioners. We have very few statesmen. And these people are so crooked, they don't even know they're crooked anymore. I don't know what to tell them. I don't know what to tell you people.
And does the public know? Right, because
The public doesn't want to pay attention.
And even of the ones that do, because I think I went to the county website and they maybe had 30 some views that day. That doesn't mean that somebody watched the whole meeting. But
Correct.
even the people that do view them, are they familiar with this OMA law? Are they familiar with how things should be run? That's certainly questionable. It's something that the public should strive to learn. I don't want to cut you off from where you were saying where you were.
I'm.
But we ought to cover the remedies if there has been OMA violations. If you're fairly familiar with them, why don't you touch on that?
I do know the remedies, and you know, I have thought about filing a lawsuit against the commissioners for this OMA violation, and the true test would be to see whether our circuit court judge and all the judges recuse themselves like they did on the last OMA violation I filed on the county commissioners. Every one of the county judges recused themselves, and it went over to Lenawee County, which the judge over there ruled against me, but if I would have appealed it, I would have won. I'm positive.
There does seem to be some
They're
decisions from our courts that are favorable. And let me just touch on the fact that the reason our judges recuse themselves is that the commissioners pay their salary. Commissioners vote on their salaries, so that is proper that they should. Now, it's still a question as to whether
I like to say they control the commissioners control their purse strings.
Correct. And that's a checks and balances in itself. That's a good thing. And it's not just the way we do it. I'm sure it's the law. But there's another suspect of the Lenawee hearing cases because we have financial, I'm to understand, we have financial, what's the word I want, connections with Lenawee County. Hillsdale does.
How about we have contracts with Lenawee County? It's a conflict of interest for their judges really to even be hearing cases from Hillsdale.
That certainly has been brought to the
Hillsdale
table
and Lenawee commune in that way through these contracts.
So back to the remedies, the fines that could be had, the money damages to you that's bringing the notice of the violation. But then, of course, it costs a person to file. It costs a person just to file, even if you take it, what do they call it, pro se? Where you represent yourself.
Per se.
Yeah. There's still costs in going to court.
I mean, you know, it's a lot less than it would be if you would hire an attorney.
Correct.
Sure. I mean, you have to pay for your filing fee and probably you probably have to you have to have somebody serve them. So, you know, that costs $35 if you have the sheriff's department serve them, or you gotta have somebody serve them because you can't serve them yourself. But you know, you would just think that these people would try to want to do it right because, you know, ultimately someone is going to get, ultimately all of them will get named because I'm not leaving anyone out. I've got friends on that board, right? You know it, I know it. I got friends on that board.
It wouldn't be fair to name one and not another if they're all
correct. Well, I'm just saying, you know, if Mr. Wiley, Mr. Benzing, and Mr. Leiniger are going to get two other commissioners sued, there's going to be someone's going to be mad, and they shouldn't be mad at me.
No, you're not saying that you're definitely going to bring a suit.
I'm not saying I'm going to bring a suit
against them. If the violation is there, that is one of the remedies.
I'm not saying I'm gonna or I'm not going to. I mean, I very well might. I don't know. I haven't really thought much about it yet because I'm still kind of ticked about what they did.
And again, this is an old law. It's from the 70s, so we've had it almost 50 years. Not
And
quite
let
50
me
years.
elaborate. The law they used was I believe, don't quote me on this. I believe it's Act 261 of 1851.
That's the original
Section
law.
46 3A is the state statute that says that the chairperson can be voted by secret ballot. OMA says secret ballot, the person has a right to know how their commissioner votes. Okay, so they're in direct conflict with each
So
other.
it's your understanding.
And yeah, I believe I'm going to write the Attorney General a letter and bring this to her awareness that look, you need to amend something here because these two, the state statute and OMA, they are in direct conflict with each other.
Right.
So.
And maybe there is an Attorney General ruling on it already. I don't know.
I'm not sure. I'd have to, you know me, I'm a hound dog, so
You are quite a researcher.
If you get me if you start mentioning something and it just trips a switch in my brain, I'm on it. You know what I mean? I'm looking into it.
Right.
I'm definitely a hound dog. I run with a lot of things that just normal people wouldn't even think about.
Right.
I don't know why or how it just happens.
Now let me just point out that you have a regular full-time job.
I do. I work 53 to 55 hours a week, and I still manage to go to the meetings
and research this stuff.
And research this stuff.
Right.
And it's all about your search techniques. You know, I don't know. I can't really explain to people my techniques. I mean, I learned them.
Well, it's something you have an interest in.
It is.
It's something that you've honed your skills.
It is. But Wiley, just getting back to Wiley, Benzing, and Leininger, they ought to be ashamed of themselves. I don't know what else to say. And they wonder why there's so much division between the two Republican parties that are infighting.
Well, and that's a whole other story that we may touch on.
Look, it's the truth.
Right, but it's not.
They wonder why there's so much. What did I say that word was?
Well, animosity.
Well, not animosity.
Infighting.
Leininger wonders why there's so much tensions and animosity and all this going on with the two Republican parties infighting. And look at them. They're not doing a good job.
Well, and I hope we can touch on that in more.
The grassroots want their little shenanigans to stop. Right. Just do it right. Put the posting on the inside of the entrance door. Follow the laws. Because if you can't follow the basic OMA laws, OMA is very basic of laws. And if you can't follow the very basics of law, what other laws are you violating?
That is of consideration.
It's very. I mean, if you.
And OMA is a good law. It's for the protection of the people. It's some states call these types of laws sunshine laws. So things aren't done on the sly in the shadows and what have you.
Well, I mean, it was a slap in the face to the public, which it was just me and you at the meeting.
At the meeting.
It was just a slap in the face to the public. Okay, we'll include him. It was just a slap in the face to the three people that were at the meeting for Leininger to call a recess and to watch Mr. Wiley, Commissioner Wiley, take Leininger in the commissioner's room and have a talk with him, come back out, then tell Brad Benzing, hey, I'd like to speak to you too, Brad, in private. Take Brad Benzing out in the hall, talk to him, and then come back into recess, and the very first vote, Wiley gets 3 votes right off the bat. He wins 2/3 over Doug Ingles. Let me tell you something about Doug Ingles. Doug Ingles was one of the best mayors that the city of Hillsdale ever had. He brought Cobra motorcycles here for $385,000, and it's still here today, people. No, there's nothing wrong with Doug Ingles being chair. So this whole thing with Wiley being the chair for 11 years, something's wrong.
It does make one wonder.
Something's wrong.
Right. Is there anything else you think that should be brought forward in this session?
I really don't. I just wish the commissioners would start realizing the mistakes they're making, and
And this isn't like this is the first time.
No.
You've made them aware of you suspected. I'll use the word suspected violations in the past. So there should be a little bit more on their toes.
Absolutely, and these are the people we elect that we think are so smart,
Right.
but they're letting Wiley get up and canvass two other commissioners in the middle of a vote, and then he comes back and he wins. He can't do that.
And again, to their defense, they've denied doing that, but sometimes actions speak louder than words. It does give one cause.
I don't think he denied it in the article. I think he...
In the article we're referring to is Hillsdale Daily News did a coverage of this.
Wiley denies allegations of OMA allegations or whatever it was.
Violations.
Yeah. But and that's what this whole segment is about the commissioners meeting. They elected Mark Wiley as chair, but Mark doesn't ever want to follow the rules.
Well, let's wrap this one up. Don't forget to check Mr. Hendee's Truth or Consequences. It's Truth or Consequences?
Yep, Hillsdale Truth or Consequences.
On Facebook.
On Facebook, and you have to join. You have to answer the membership questions, and there's a few rules you need to read, and just.
But if they aren't troublemakers, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I don't like profanity. I don't like, you can't attack people.
Right.
It's just it's a debate / opinion page / informational page. I like to keep it clean. My wife's pretty religious, and I don't, even though I used to be a little terror when I was a kid and wasn't the best person, in Hillsdale. I've grown up. I've got 2 girls. I'm a responsible man. I take care of my family, and I believe in God.
Right.
And I believe in country. And I believe in statesmanship. My grandpa was dean of men at Hillsdale College for 30 plus years. He was also a professor, taught marriage in the family, and I've been married 20 years to the same woman.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
and your roots are here.
My roots are here, and I just want what everyone else should want, and that is a government that follows the rules.
Right.
They follow the law.
And I hope through this session and others that people will start to get an interest and pay more attention and learn some of this stuff and hold our elected officials accountable.
I would hope so.
Right.
And if somebody did run against Mark Wiley, don't, I think change is necessary at some point.
Change can be good.
Yeah, I think change is necessary at some point. When you're watching your elected officials and they're not doing their constitutional duties and they're not acting like statesmen.
Well, I think we may have you back and elaborate on some things that we believe have been wrong with the commissioners. You've felt a bite of that personally, and let's not touch on it tonight, but let's save that for another episode.
Oh, yeah.
So do check out Joe's Truth or Consequences on Facebook, and if you follow the Adams Times on YouTube, you can see videos like this and see what your public officials are doing. I can't cover them all. It's just me right now. If other people are interested, we may expand and cover more public meetings. I've covered Jonesville quite a bit. They're probably the second largest entity in Hillsdale besides Hillsdale, and then I covered my own township, Adams Township, as well. So you've got some ways of keeping track if you can't make the meetings, but everyone ought to find time to attend a meeting or two in their life. If you've never been to a public meeting, shame on you. You should do better. So thank you for joining us, and Joe, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me, Mark.
Meet up again.